we're way over-regulated for small businesses, and we need to do something about it. And when we look around and we look at what else we need to do, we need to improve dramatically our public education system, K through 12, the state and community colleges, our university systems. We have made progress under Governor Bush. We had accountability, and the 4th grade reading and math tests are better. But we've got a long way to go. And it's not just about educating our kids and grandkids, it's about bringing business here, providing the workforce we have to have. And we need to have meaningful, significant litigation lawsuit reform. It's long overdue. Long overdue. The city of Miami has the highest malpractice insurance premiums of any city in the country. The state of Florida today has the highest medical malpractice insurance premiums of any state. When a young man or a young woman graduates from medical school and they go on to do their residency and then they decide where are they going to practice medicine, not enough of them are choosing Florida. We have a shortage of doctors, and that's going to grow worse. And the number one reason they give for not choosing Florida are medical malpractice insurance premiums. And this isn't just about my 95-year-old dad getting his health care, or our children or grandchildren being able to have the health care they deserve. It's about being able to lure businesses here. We want them to come. We want them to be part of what we do. But they're looking at our future, and they're not seeing the roadmap of how Florida can compete with Texas and Mississippi that have had these reforms, and that are cleaning our clocks when it comes to luring new businesses there every single day, and for that matter, Georgia and Alabama. We can't let that happen any longer, and we won't when I'm governor. And we'll address the tough issues of property insurance and property taxes and water. But the bottom line is that I have a plan to do this. I work very hard to do it, and we're going to do it. We're going to succeed. We're going to build a consensus, and we're going to have a better future for tomorrow for our children and our grandchildren than we have today. Now, I have a fellow running against me, and he's spending millions of dollars on TV, telling stories that I can't compete with all the time, telling things that are half-truths and sometimes outright lies about me. And he spent over $25 million of his own money. I think his wife's put another $10 million in. I don't mind saying his name. You never do that in politics, but his name's out there. It's Rick Scott. I haven't met him yet. I guess he says he's met me somewhere. I don't recall it. I'm going to see him in debates in a couple of weeks. But I know this much. He goes around telling people that he's going to make government accountable as a businessman. Well, he did not make Columbia HCA accountable. I can tell you this for a fact. And I think all of you know this in this room, and we need you to be telling other people for us, because if we don't have the kind of money to compete with him, he's running right now these TV ads with. But the fact is that when he was the CEO of Columbia HCA, they had the greatest fraud, or at least one of them, I think the greatest fraud against senior citizens in our history of this country. And I'm talking now about ripping off Medicare. This is taxpayer dollars. It's senior citizens' money should be going to health care. And they were fined $1.7 billion criminally for upcoding, for charging Medicare for procedures they didn't do, for a higher procedure that would get a better return, all over the country. One morning, they woke up there and they found that a total of more than 50 hospitals had been raided by the FBI. And a couple of weeks later, Rick Scott was asked to leave, basically forced out by the board of directors. He ran off with, I guess, $300 million in money and stocks and so forth from Columbia HCA. I don't think that somebody with that record, he was responsible for that. He says he's responsible. What does responsible mean? Does that mean we just say we forget it? It never happened? Was he the kind of businessman? There are some good businessmen. Ronald Reagan might be one, Jeb Bush. We'd be proud of to be governor of the state of Florida, but do you think that somebody with that record should be entrusted with running the 4th largest state in the union? I don't think so. I don't think so. And I will tell you what else. I looked at the plan he's got now out that he's produced on policy, and we've analyzed it over the weekend, and we saw what he said about what we said about it, went back and forth. I started my unveiling of my plans back in April, and he's stolen a lot of it. Absolutely plagiarized it. The title I gave him, Chief Economic Development Officer. That's what he's got right up in front. I look at a lot of this and I say, hey, this is great stuff. I wrote it. Okay? But on the other hand, he's also come up with some ideas of his own, and those ideas were not his, probably. He's paid a lot of money for them, and because he doesn't know state government, doesn't really know how our state operates, he's lived here only a month longer than technically legal to qualify to run for governor, I'm sure that he didn't intend to, but he's made some serious mistakes, and we're going to talk about those over the next few weeks. One of them is simply in budgeting. I'm all for reducing the scope of the state government. We're going to have a $6 to $8 billion shortfall in our budget next year when I become governor. I don't know if that means anything to you because dollars thrown out all the time, but the most we've had, we've had $3 billion to fill about a $70 billion budget. We have to have a balanced budget for it, by the way. But the reality is Well, the reality is that that's going to be tough to do, but we're not going to increase the taxes when I'm governor, and we're going to tighten the belt. We're going to eliminate some agencies. We're going to pare down. We're going to tighten our belt. We're going to do what I suggested too. We're going to call on the legislature to pass a law, and I know that commissioners here won't like this, will squirm a little bit, but I believe it's important that says for the next 2 years we take a timeout on local property taxes, because we just simply can't afford it for any of us to be doing it. But now, what Rick's calling for, he says, I'm going to go back to the 2004 budget. Well, that might not mean much to you. And then he said, well, you don't know how I figured this. And we went out and recalculated it based on his guidelines. And it means a 24% reduction in the state spending levels. It means he's going to cut $17 billion out of the state budget. And then he doesn't tell you a lot. I have 100 pages of what we do, very specific. He gives about 7 pages of bullets. Well, one of the bullets of how he says he's going to get there is probably typical of this. He says, we're going to have $1 billion saved from the state prison system when I am governor. That's how he's going to get there, at least in part. A large part, he says. Do you know what the entire budget of the state correction system in a given year is? $2.4 billion. If he's going to cut it by half, he's got to turn prisoners loose. He's got to do something about dramatically shorten their sentences. And I doubt if you're a sheriff, Sheriff Stewart, or anybody else is going to want that to happen in our state. He's not going to do it. It's unrealistic. It's not professional, and it simply shows the absence of knowledge. The bottom line is this. I know what I am, and you know who I am. And you don't know a whole lot, and we don't know more than what he says in his slick ads and what I told you about his history about my opponent. I'm somebody who's just as angry as you are about politicians or people who run for office who say one thing and they do something when they're elected that's different. I'm not like that. As Kathy says, I got a long record. You know where I stand. You can find out on every issue. You might quibble over something and disagree with me, but you know where I stand. You don't know where he stands except for what he says to you. And when I'm elected, I'm a Ronald Reagan conservative. I was elected with Ronald Reagan. I believe in less government, in less taxes, in less spending. When I left Congress, we had a balanced budget. The last time we had it, we got there with a contract with America. I helped write. I wrote 4 of those planks in that contract. I understand what it's like to walk the walk and talk the talk and be a conservative, and that's how I'm going to not only campaign, but you can count on it. When I'm governor, I'm going to govern as a conservative. We're going to have this state running the right way. We're going to bring the jobs here. We're going to make a brighter future for tomorrow. We're going to improve the education for our kids. We're going to have a great state that we all can be proud of, and we're going to grow the right way. And I know that that's going to happen, and I know you're going to help me get the word out. It's a grassroots campaign. We're going to have sufficient resources, and on election day, not only August 24, but in November, I'm going to be elected your next governor. We're going to win this election. Thank you so much. Back to the back. This is a primary, so Kathy can't do this, okay? But back in the back, Brad, and my campaign, my field rep, has sign-up sheets. You can sign up to do telephone calls to turn out the vote for us. You can go out and sign up to walk precincts. You can do whatever, help us with our absentee ballot program or anything else. You do it all the time in the general election. Before you leave tonight, please see Brad. You can't do that, Kathy, but I can. I got bumper stickers, too. Thank you all. God bless.